Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members. I'm here to speak to you about Senate Bill 14, which reforms the procedure by which state agencies adopt rules, impose regulatory requirements, as well as the deference given to the interpretation of laws and rules by state agencies in certain judicial proceedings. You have a question?
Mr. Speaker,
For what purpose?
will the gentleman yield for some questions?
Does the gentleman yield?
Yes.
The gentleman yields.
Thank you. Chair Capriglione, I want to ask some questions. Was this bill heard in the DOGE committee?
It was heard in the Committee on Delivery of Government Efficiency, yes.
What is the name of the committee?
The Delivery of Government Efficiency.
Okay, government efficiency. So what is the reason or reasons for filing this bill to create a new government regulatory office?
So the point of creating this is that what we want to try and do, every time we leave here, we go and we pass laws and then we leave it up to our agencies to create these regulations. In that process, sometimes we've created unnecessary, duplicative, expensive, or prohibitive regulations. So the purpose of the office is to have technical professionals, people skilled in regulations, to determine the effectiveness of those regulations and to come up with recommendations to the agencies on how they can make things better for the constituents of Texas.
So is this proposed new government regulatory office intended to work with the Texas Sunset Advisory Commission?
No, this is not a legislative agency. This would be inside, obviously, the executive's office that would go and provide those recommendations and details and work with agencies to provide those recommendations. So, not with the legislature.
So it's not it's going to be in the executive branch.
That's right. So the Sunset Commission is a legislative agency, which, as you know, provides recommendations on a variety of different things. This is an executive office.
Would they be doing the same thing as the Sunset Advisory Commission?
No. So with the Sunset Commission, again, is a legislative body. This would be executive. The Sunset Commission, as you know, meets on several agencies and puts them on a schedule of sometimes 10 years, sometimes longer than that. What this would do is something completely and utterly different. It would provide constant recommendations and review of agency rules for all agencies. So it's a much more comprehensive and wider process.
But would we need to do the Sunset Advisory Commission if we have this new government regulatory office? Would we need them anymore?
Again, this is not the Sunset Commission, and it won't have the same functions as the Sunset Commission. So this would be something different.
Okay, so you're saying that because the Sunset Commission, they review agencies to make sure that they're still needed, right?
Right, and what this is not checking to see whether an agency is needed. This is looking at whether some of the rules that were created are still necessary, that when those rules are written, they're done in a way that obviously takes care of the public health and safety and welfare, but make sure it's not prohibitive to our constituents. Let me give you some examples. For instance, in the state of Texas, we have over 274,000 rules and regulations. What this agency, what this office would do is come up with recommendations on getting rid of some of them that are unnecessary.
Well, in terms of the Sunset Advisory Commission, they've done that too.
Now, what the Sunset Commission does is it does provide some recommendations on rules that it thinks is duplicative, but in this particular case, again, it's an executive agency that would be looking at all of the rules, not just the rules from a handful of state agencies.
Well, I mean, of course, the Sunset Commission isn't on a schedule. We agree to that. And so they're not
Good.
looking at every agency every year, so it's every 10 years,
So
right?
they would look, again, I guess I don't know what the disconnect here is. The Sunset Commission has a job and a function that's legislative in terms of reviewing the operations, processes, and management of our state agencies. This is a body that's going to be focused on the rules and regulations and the rulemaking process.
Okay,
So-
I'm just trying to figure out the difference, and then, why do we need to do this new regulatory office if we already, because every 2 years we come in and we review agencies, we file legislation, and we have a chance to make changes. Is there a concern that the agencies are not capable or struggle with creating best practices? For
No.
example, on yours, it says that they're going to create a manual, a regulatory economic analyst manual, and from that manual, from the executive office, they're going to describe best practices for state agencies to do their job.
Okay, so this bill has a lot of features to it, so let me explain all of the different pieces of it. So of course there is an office that is going to review those 274,000 things, which is not something the Sunset Commission does. But what is the goal? The goal is to make things more efficient. As an example, in Virginia, they also created a similar office, the Office of Regulatory Management. And in that process, they've been able to completely redo the way that regulations have been done. So to give you an example, they've already seen over $1 billion. Just in the last 2 years, they've already seen $1 billion in economic growth due to those regulations. Those regulations have reduced, for instance, the amount of time it takes individuals to get a license or a permit. They've seen, in some cases, up to 7 times quicker. So think about that. You have constituents that are here, maybe they want to get a cosmetology license, maybe they want to start a restaurant, maybe another small business, but they find themselves constantly hampered by applications or processes or all this different paperwork that we've heard about time and time again. And this would be an office that would be focused on helping them. The other ways that this would be helpful is we're going to go and create a website, because I think it's fair for everybody, every single company, to be able to know the rules and the regulations that they need to follow.
Well, they do follow them on the Texas Register, the rules.
Well, I don't know if you've ever looked at the Texas Registry,
I have.
but you have. Well, it's complicated. It's very long. It's not easy for people to follow. So what we're doing is we're creating a website that is a one-stop place, not only where everybody can search and see what those rules are in a way that you cannot, with all due respect, that you cannot with the Register. But what it also does, this bill does, is it requires all of this to be written in simple, plain language. And I think not only should people know what those rules are, we should make it easier for them to understand what the rules are
But
without
they're
having
also
to hire
on the
an
agency.
attorney, no offense, or a compliance person.
It's also on the agency's website as well, but okay. In
Sure,
terms of
but
the-
I think let me talk to you about that. I mean, I think if you start a restaurant or if you start a dry cleaning place or you start another company, I mean, it would be difficult for anyone, really, to know all the different agencies and all the different rules that they may have to follow. I wouldn't even know myself where to start on doing something like that. And it shouldn't be something where I have to go to TABC's website and then maybe the Dish's website and another website, or all of them, because I'm not sure what those rules are. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it easier for the public to get engaged in how these rules are made. We're going to make it easier for them to know when those rules are changing. We're going to make it easy for them to know where those rules are, and we're going to make it easier for them to understand.
So you're going to do that by creating a new office, a regulatory office, where they are going to have a website that has all the same information that's already available, but you're saying that it's going to be in one location.
Well,
So if
it's going to be...
say for instance I'm an accountant, and
sorry?
say for instance I'm an accountant, and there's rules that are in one code that impact my profession, but also I have to comply with the the health and safety code, and then there's other areas of the code that impact my profession. Would it all be in one spot that says, if you are an accountant or if you are a lawyer, these are the regulations that impact your profession, and these are the rules that you would have to follow? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, X, Y.
Well, it's definitely going to make it a lot easier. I mean, obviously, when we say website, maybe some people still think of HTML websites, but obviously technology has progressed significantly. And so, yes, there's going to be ways to access that information using new technologies and make it easier for people to do it. I think that by doing this, we're going to see, just like Virginia did and some other states that have created similar things like this, we just see a massive effect on efficiency, right? I've talked to so many small business individuals, I'm sure you have too, Representative, who have talked about the struggle of getting their business off the ground. Not only are they worried about capital, not only are they worried about workforce, not only are they worried about having to get everybody on
I'm sorry
board
to
and to
interrupt.
market and do all of this themselves.
My time is getting up, so I just want to ask another question.
Sure.
The
Well, I
people
just
who are
wanted
going to
to
be on
answer
this,
them. Yep.
sorry, who is going to be on this panel or in this office? They're appointed by the governor? Would they be appointed by the governor? And will there be public input on these proposals?
So there's always proposals on rules and regulations. Obviously, there's hearings and that sort of thing. In fact, what we have in this bill is an amendment by Senator Alvarado that says that no rules restricting or prohibiting the ability for the public to get involved would be able to happen. So we have that already in the bill. In terms of who works for the governor will obviously make that decision.
Now, would the agencies be expected to promptly implement the recommendations from the new regulatory office, or can they say, well, let's take a look at them?
There will be the office that goes and provides guidance and so on to the agencies, and I'm sure the agencies will follow promptly.
Well, I'm just asking, are they required to comply with the recommendations
Well,
immediately?
so let's say, for instance, right now in law, I'll give you an example, right? So right now in law, there's a requirement for certain financial impact or other impact assessments to be filed and to be reported on when a rule is created or implemented. But there's really no enforcement today. So what our bill does is it does require the agencies to do those reports. Otherwise, it potentially invalidates those rules. But even that, there's back and forth in terms of what the process is to get it done and a grace period. So there's a mechanism to handle those kind of conversations.
No, like if they make a recommendation, say for instance, this new government regulatory office makes a
Can you
recommendation.
speak up a little bit? I'm sorry.
Yes. Say for instance, the new government regulatory office makes a recommendation on changing how an agency does business, or, I guess something that they're supposed to do. Are they supposed to immediately implement that recommendation, or can they take time to review it?
There will be a process, I'm sure, which the agencies will understand that recommendations by this office should be implemented, and I expect them to do so promptly.
Okay. All right. Thank you.